Now, normally when your series has a franchise-killing movie, you don't walk away from it that easily, or ever. I mean, look at the Jaws series. Look at the Tim Burton, Joel Schumacher Batman series. Look at the Christopher Reeve Superman series, or the Amazing Spider-Man series, or duology, I guess. So, normally you stay dead. But much like the character of Rocky, Sylvester Stallone has managed to make the impossible possible. This is Rocky Balboa, the sixth Rocky movie, and the final one to have Rocky as the main character. This movie, unlike the previous Rocky films, does not open with a recap of Rocky 5, thank God. And this is for a couple reasons. A, Rocky 5 was a piece of shit, and many of us, including Stallone himself, wanted to forget about it. But the other reason is that this movie takes place 16 years after Rocky 5, so it just feels better to not see what happened beforehand, but just jump right into the story and see where Rocky is now. And where is he now? Well, he's still living in Philadelphia. Things have changed. He's gotten older. Adrian has passed away. And the only person left in his life is Paulie, who's once again played by Burt Young. As for Rocky's son, he's living his own life, which is fine. Kids grow older. So Rocky now owns a restaurant that's dedicated to his late wife, and spends a lot of time there, and he'll tell stories to the guests about his glory days in boxing. So the real plot kicks in when the sports show shows a computer-generated fight between a young Rocky Balboa and the current heavyweight champion Mason Dixon, who's played by Antonio Tarver, who is a real boxer. The fight shows that if the two fought, the younger Rocky Balboa would knock Mason Dixon out, and he'd win by knockout. So naturally, everyone starts getting curious, especially Rocky himself, who decides, I kinda like to go back to fighting, small stuff. Or at least he thinks that, because soon Mason Dixon's managers show up to Adrian's and inform Rocky that Mason Dixon wants to fight Rocky in an exhibition match in Vegas because, again, everyone is curious to see how well he could hold up at his old age. So naturally, people disapprove of this and make fun of it, but Rocky trains up and tries to prove everyone that he can go the distance. So like I said in my review for Rocky, the only other sequel that I've seen prior to doing this series of reviews was Rocky Balboa. I've only seen Rocky and Rocky Balboa beforehand, and not the other sequels. And I remember liking this movie quite a bit. Obviously, I saw Rocky first before this, but after watching the entire series from beginning to end, I went from simply liking this movie to loving this movie. This is my favorite Rocky sequel where he's the main character. And one of the main reasons is that this movie succeeds where Rocky 5 failed. Rocky 5 tried to bring the series back to its more down-to-earth, humble roots, and failed, because by the time that movie ends, you're like, well, there was nothing that really got resolved at the end, so what was the point of that? This movie actually has a resolution and an actual conflict, and it does a much better job than Rocky 5 ever did. Sylvester Stallone here is really good. He's back in the director's chair in addition to writing and starring in the movie. One of the problems I had with Stallone in Rocky 5 was that he tried to balance the humble attitude of Rocky with the tough guy attitude that he had in Rocky 4, and it just didn't work. Here, that tough guy attitude is thrown out the window, it's back to pure humbleness, and it's really good. It also helps that Rocky acts a little differently than he did in Rocky 5, where in Rocky 5, he just kind of acted the way he did in Rocky 1. Almost like the character took many steps back. In this movie, Rocky is an older guy. He's nearing 60 years old, so he's definitely had experience, he's a little smarter, and he is more likable than he was in the last movie. Burt Young is back as Paulie, and once again is really great. When I reviewed Rocky 5, I said that Paulie is like that drunken, crazy uncle that, for whatever reason, you keep around the house. And it may have sounded like that in a negative light, but truthfully, Paulie is a great character. And it's great to see Burt Young in this role for one last time. Now, in terms of Rocky's opponent, Antonio Tarver, who was a real-life heavyweight champion, plays Mason Dixon, and what I like about this guy is that he's actually the first opponent of Rocky's who's more down to earth. He acts like a real person and not a cartoon like Rocky's other opponents were. I mean, with Apollo Creed, he was over the top, but that was his character. Clubber Lang was just a loudmouth piece of shit. And then Ivan Drago had no personality at all, and he was just a brute. This guy's more realistic, and his attitude towards Rocky is tough, but he's also fair. Speaking of realistic, that's probably one of the biggest things about this movie, is that it makes it a lot more down-to-earth and less cartoonish than something like Rocky 4 was, or even Rocky 3, as much as I like that movie. This leads into some very emotional scenes. Probably the most emotional for me is the first 10 minutes, when we basically see what Rocky's doing with his life now. It takes place on the 1-year anniversary where he met Adrian in the first movie. You see him go around to all these locations, like the pet shop, his old home, the ice skating rink that eventually got torn down, and it's all cut together with stock footage from the original Rocky. And some of the emotion is mainly there because of nostalgia, sure, but it's also sincere emotion. It doesn't go, hey, remember this from Rocky 1? No, it's because you're invested in Rocky's character, and to see him go down memory lane, it's kind of heartbreaking, and it is just really well done. That first 10 minutes of the movie is much more emotional than any second of Rocky 5. This movie also has a great message, once again trying to fix the mistakes of Rocky 5 with its message of, hey kids, if you punch your way out of a situation, everything will be great. This message here is that life's gonna be difficult. There are gonna be many obstacles in your way, and there's gonna be a lot of things to bring you down. But what's important is not simply how hard you can hit back, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. Despite everything being tough, you still have that drive to keep going. And the message is told through Rocky via monologue, which is one of the best monologues that Stallone has delivered next to his monologue at the end of First Blood. And that message also applies to the Rocky series as a whole. Despite how bad Rocky 5 was, Sylvester Stallone had the drive to make this last Rocky movie and to have it come out as good as it was. Now let's talk about the fight. You want to talk about realism in this movie. The fight is one of the best and probably the most realistic fight this series has to offer. It takes place in Las Vegas, and what's really cool about it is that it's filmed like a pay-per-view match. And all the hits you see between Rocky and Mason Dixon are real. Both Sylvester Stallone and Antonio Tarver exchanged real punches. And one of the things that Stallone said is that if one of the actors misses a punch, we're not going to try to hide it with a sound effect. And the realism really does show. Even though this whole series is predictable and you kind of know where this movie's going to end, there were points in this match where I just went, oh my god. Just like it was an actual boxing match that I was watching on HBO. It's that realistic and convincing. So I still love the original Rocky fight because of the emotional connection. I love the Rocky 3 fight because you get to see the whole fight and you really want to see Rocky beat Clubber Lang's ass. But I love this fight more than that, just based on realism and the emotional stakes. So the match ends with Mason Dixon being the winner by split decision, but there was an alternate ending where it was claimed that Rocky was the winner, and I'm so glad that they did not include that ending, because the point of the fight was not for Rocky to win. The point of the fight was to prove that he could last a full 10 rounds at his old age against the heavyweight champion, and it just really leaves you with a great feeling, and by the end of it, you'll go, Rocky, 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 Rocky. So I really love this movie. If I had any negatives to say about it, it would be that some of the extras are a little unconvincing. There's a scene where Rocky's in a bar, and this one girl walks up to him trying to act all ghetto and street smart, and she doesn't come across as convincing at all. It just feels very fake and actory. But that's about the only thing I can say that's bad, because overall, Rocky Balboa is a huge surprise. After Rocky 5, nobody expected a sixth Rocky movie, let alone for the sixth Rocky movie to be one of the best of the series. The emotion's there, the fight's great, the actors do a great job, and it serves as a much better ending to Rocky's story as a main character than Rocky 5 ever did. So this one's definitely worth seeing in your lifetime. If you've not seen Rocky Balboa, I would recommend watch Rocky 1 through 4 first, skip 5, and go straight to Rocky Balboa, because 5 has no reason to exist. This is everything Rocky 5 should have been. But that wasn't the end of the series, because last year we had Creed, which had Rocky be a supporting character, and now assumes the Mickey role as the trainer to Adonis Creed, the son of Apollo. This thing is better than Rocky Balboa. This is almost as good as the original Rocky. It made my top 10 list last year. The fight scenes are great. Michael B. Jordan does a great job. Sylvester Stallone is phenomenal, and it's so criminal that he didn't win the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. It's a great movie, and if I had one final good thing to say about Rocky 4, as mediocre as it is, if there was no Rocky 4, there would probably be no Creed. So I'm glad for that. And that's my review for Rocky Balboa and the entire Rocky series. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment down below and tell me what your thoughts are on this movie or the franchise as a whole. And as always, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.